Good morning and welcome to the first Designlab insurance webinar. Some of you will know who I am, but my name is James Goodwin and I'm the Client Services Director of the Designlab. And I've been working within the insurance marketplace for clients for about 25 years. It's my pleasure to introduce you all to the chair this morning. Her name is Kim Vernu, and she is a highly experienced strategist, NED and CEO, and has over 30 years experience of the insurance marketplace. So without further ado, may I just hand over to Kim.
Thank you. Thank you very much, James. Thank you for the kind introduction. Welcome everybody on the call that's joining us this morning. It's my privilege to chair today's webinar with such an illustrious panel, the first in a series to be run by the Designlab. Given the years of tradition that the insurance market has, and it's very used to doing things in a certain way. However, the events of the last 2 years have very clearly demonstrated that there are new ways of working. Today, we want to explore that in further depth, and we will be raising the question with our panelists: how can innovative digital solutions help you meet the needs of your evolving customers? So we will be raising a couple of polls on the screen today for you to respond to, because we'd like some interaction with the audience. I would also say that if you have any questions for us, could you put them in the chat and I will raise them as we go along. So could I welcome to the panel today the following participants: Martin Ectors, Caroline Bedford and Kevin Davis. And I will ask each member of the panel to introduce themselves, starting with Martin.
Hi, my name is Martin Nectus. I'm a former Chief Innovation Officer for Legal & General, which I think most of you are familiar with. I also worked for one of the most disruptive software companies, where my line manager was the Second Space Tourist. And for the last year, I've had my own company helping blockchain companies and other innovators with very innovative solutions.
Thank you, Martin. We'll go to Caroline next.
Thanks, Kim, and hello, everybody there. I'm Caroline Bedford. I am the Chief Executive Officer of EDI, which stands for Educate, Develop, Innovate and Inspire. I started working in the technology industry, in the technology side of the insurance industry in the late 80s. So like Kim, I have more than 30 years experience of working on global transformation programs. I have worked for large carriers as well as being part of the senior leadership team for DXC Technology. And I set up EDI, which is an innovation development company for business practitioners at the beginning of last year.
Okay, thank you very much, Caroline. And last, but certainly not least, Kevin.
Hello, my name is Kevin Davis. I'm the co-founder and creative director of the Designlab. And we're a design practice, and we've been working within the technology sector for over 20 years. And we design and build web applications and digital products.
Okay, thank you. And as you were the last to be introduced, you will be the first to ask the first answer or respond to the first question, please, Kevin. So how can innovative digital solutions help us meet the needs of our evolving customers?
Thanks, Kim. I think the products that we create need to be obviously need to meet the needs of the users very, very easily. And I'll talk about that. So our relationship with technology currently from a personal level means that we have these fantastic devices on our wrists. We have cars that are basically based on technology now, and we have these phones in our pocket, and they enable very specific tasks to be done, sort of individual tasks. So on your phone, you might have a weather app, you might have a fitness app, you might have, a number of apps that are sort of focused on sort of specific things. And I think that what that does is it makes our expectations of our relationship with technology on a personal level easy. And the problem as I see it is that when we get into the office, or when you get into a corporate office with large monolithic applications that you're using on a day-to-day basis, you expect those to behave in the same way. So you're kind of on the back foot already, because you need to work your way around those processes that they offer you to get what you need, rather than the other way with your personal devices. You've got specific things that are designed to achieve goals and are designed for humans, rather than in the office where the products you're using are designed from a technology background, and probably solve a lot of problems rather than specific problems. So I think that in order for people to adopt the technologies or the digital products that we're going to be making to get somewhere in the office, we need to make them more human. So we need to start considering them from a design point of view rather than a technology point of view. That's how I think that we can move forward with this stuff.
Okay, thank you for that. Caroline, I'd be interested in your views, because I know that you're very close to involving people with technological design and improvements.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm echoing a few of Kevin's points. The question, how can digital technology and digital skills help our ever-evolving customer base? I think one of the first questions is always within insurance is, who is the customer? And depending on the type of business that you write, whether you're B2C, whether you're B2B, whether you're part of a large global organization, your customer can be varying. It could be somebody that you work with, it could be the broker, right down to your ultimate insured. And in terms of all of us as customers, those needs are really changing. As Kevin said, the expectations are really, really changing. Everybody, whether they are your colleagues or your end customer, wants a more intuitive, interactive experience. Everybody has got higher expectations of what they want and what you need to deliver. Everybody has got changed priorities. That's been happening over the last few years, but in particular over the course of the pandemic, people have reevaluated their own values and their own priorities, particularly in terms of work-life balance, in terms of environmental and social governance. So our customers are not only having higher expectations and demands, they want more from us. If, as organizations, we aren't able to be providing those interactions in the way that our staff, our colleagues, our brokers, and our insureds want, then ultimately they will go elsewhere. So organizations will struggle to engage and retain the best talent, and business will go to those organizations that can service them in the way that they require.
Okay, thank you. Martin, as an innovator and a disruptor, I suspect you may have a slightly different point of view.
Your time is really valuable. At the next 15 minutes, we hope that somebody will pick up the phone and talk to you. That is the experience of most insurance companies today. Call centers is what most of the businesses have. That's just not good enough. Like, people, especially with COVID, had waiting times that were abnormal. There's still today companies saying, due to COVID, no. Customers just want their problem to be solved. And they want to have it in a couple of clicks, just like Kevin said and Caroline has said. Like, the expectations of customers is they want to get on with their life, solve my problem. I want to do something else. I don't want to be waiting for you to pick up the phone. I want it to go away. I have an urgent problem, and that's why I interact with my insurance. Either you give me a quote, either you give me a solution to my claim, or we change something. And you should think how a Google or Facebook would do these things. They don't have call centers anymore. And if you think about like the next thing that's coming, let's say car insurance, it was just in the news that like Elon Musk is giving everybody a score on how you're driving. Mm-hmm. So the new technologies basically is no longer, oh, you can fill in a digital form. It's like, I can help you reduce your risk of having an accident. And by doing so, we both win. So digital is no longer good enough. You have to innovate. You have to take it to the next level, because tomorrow robot taxis are coming and they will take over the whole direct car insurance. And this is just the beginning. So it's not, and can we do digital better? No. Can we survive if we don't do it? Probably not.
Okay, so working on the basis that there still remains a lot to do, despite the fact that some of us may think that we've come on leaps and bounds since the years where we used to have to run a handwritten telex downstairs to the telex machine and wait for it to go, she says, showing how old she is. How would you get started with developing these innovative solutions? Caroline, I'll take that to you.
I was just smiling when you were referencing telex and thinking, what a shame we didn't have Fitbits. Our step count would have been amazing. We had to count them manually. What I would say to that, Kim, is we've always had technology. And even 30 years ago, when we were talking about telexes, they were new one time. And there were always people who were reluctant to change and had that kind of resistance. So this is not new, but of course, technology is changing at a far faster pace. And technology is a tool. It's the mindset that we really need to focus on. Martin talked about being innovative, having an innovative mindset. Historically, the skills development that insurers have put their staff through have focused on specialisms. So specialist lines of business, operation programs, your career path has been very much structured to the role and the box that you're put in. We now realize that isn't as effective with the broad horizontal set of skills that all of us need. We all need to be more generalist. So my focus, and where I've seen success, is where insurers take business practitioners with that deep knowledge of their class of business or of their specialism, but they put them through a longer term immersive innovation development program where they can build those skills over time. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So people can start to build those skills and they become more adaptive to using technology, and they're able to see how it can complement their specialisms, not take over from it.
Okay, thank you for that. Martin, what's your view on that?
So the question was how to become more innovative. What I normally ask people is, what's your Harry Potter problem? And then people look at me like, what are you asking? And the reason why I ask that is that there's two types of problems. Either in a business, you have an urgent business problem and money and time can make it go away. You go to your digital team, your IT and change team, a consultancy company, and you give them the money and you say, make this go away. And then they normally can, because you as a business team actually know what you want. But most of the time, those type of solutions are underperforming, because what you really need to ask an innovator is like, my horse is too slow, what can you suggest? Because if you are just going to somebody and saying like, I want the solution, you'll get that solution, but is it innovative? Probably not. So the reason why I ask for a Harry Potter problem is, what's your business challenge that you can't solve? And the only thing you can hope for is an innovator with a magic wand to make it go away. So if your business challenge is exactly like I said, my horse is too slow, an innovator can then come and show you a design of a car and make a prototype and put you on it and show you there's other ways. But if you come and say like, this is my RFP on faster horses, you will never get innovation because you'll get faster horses. So the way to innovate is not to restrict the innovator from being able to help you.
Okay.
Can I just pick up on a little bit of what Martin said there, Kim? So Martin's giving that example of a faster horse. One of the things that, in showcasing a car, So I think it's really important to have that magic wand moment, that Harry Potter moment that Martin talks about. However, what we have seen in established organizations is that incremental change has a higher chance of success. So what I'm looking at with your analogy there, Martin, is that if you've got an organization that has horses and you show them a car, we need to be able to put that infrastructure around it. So there needs to be petrol stations. There needs to be people who can drive. There needs to be garages to put them into. So I feel the mindset of incremental change on that journey is the step that enough focus isn't put into.
Okay, that's a very valid point. Let me give another example in two other industries. At Nokia, executives said, we have done nothing wrong. Google came along, Apple came along, we have not done anything wrong. We asked customers what they wanted, we gave them, it was evolutionary, and now they're no longer there. BMW, Mercedes, all the brands have been asking all their customers, do you want an EV car? Do you want a robot taxi? And they all consistently said no. At the moment, they have a competitor that's worth more than all of them combined. So evolutionary things have a higher chance of getting done in the organization, but there only needs to be one revolutionary competitor to wipe out the industry.
Do you feel that's true of a regulated industry, Martin?
It's very much so, because until now, regulation was protecting insurance financial services. But if you look at, for instance, decentralized finance, we're now no longer talking about a couple of small groups that are moving a couple of millions. We're talking about hundreds of billions now being moved. Family offices and hedge funds all going to regulators and please let us go and invest in crypto. And these new things. So what's happening is sometimes startups come along and they basically on purpose build something that is perfectly illegal. And we've seen that with Uber. Uber didn't go to Transport for London and ask for a license. They basically made everybody love their service. And then when TfL tried to take it away, they actually found out that regular people were against them. And they had no other choice. So hiding behind regulation isn't in telecom, they tried it and it failed. So it isn't a historically very sound strategy.
I think there's one observation I'd make there, actually, to be fair to the regulator, and I'm not always, there's a number of people on this call with but to be fair to the regulator, I do think that the PRA and the FCA now with their sandbox idea are trying to move things forward with a view to making not only insurance more technically able and effective and accessible to consumers. And that's particularly where the focus of the FCA is, keeping consumers safe, but also making sure that they've got access to the technology and the responses that they require. I'm very conscious that Kevin's been quite quiet so far on this particular topic. So I'd like to hear his views in terms of, how do we get started with this, Kevin? How do we start developing these innovative technical solutions?
I think you just need to dive in and get started with them. Obviously, we need to understand what the problem is to start with, but if we're sat around the table procrastinating what the end could be or what the product is, or sometimes we get briefed by a client says, I want to use this technology. And I think that's a really difficult place to be, as I think Martin touched on, because it's actually not about the piece of technology that we're using, it's about the journey to get in and solving people's problems. So for instance, it's about producing a number of experiments and putting them out there and testing them and see what comes back. Because as Martin's pointed out, the people who are winning in the car industry now are people who are making electric cars. Now that, I'm assuming, was a was a kind of experiment in the first place. I know electric cars have been around a long time, if you look back in history, in some form or another, but they kind of exploded. And unless we're brave enough to put those experiments out there and potentially have some failure, and I know in a sector where there is risk averse and failure is not really in the language of the business, unless we embrace that, we're not going to come up with stuff that works. And again, once it's out there and we find some experiments that work, we need to investigate how they work, why they worked, what can we do to improve them, ask people, monitor. You know, we've got the technology now where we can see every interaction that everyone has with a piece of technology and where the endpoints are and where the failures are and where it doesn't kind of work. So that's what I believe. We need to just be brave and get it out there.
Okay, I have a question for all of you, actually. It might be a bit of a fastball, but do you think that this is a generational thing as well? I mean, I freely concede, I'm knocking on the door of 60 now, so downloading apps and using apps in Waitrose to me is total anathema, and I battled with one yesterday whilst I was trying to get £2.50 off something and realised that I didn't have the voucher with me, all of that kind of thing. But I do feel that there is a generational shift here. Because people are much more capable of using technology than my generation would ever have been. So how do we accommodate that? And the reason I ask the question is, of course, because lots of boards have older people on them, and therefore they may not be prepared to embrace technology in quite the same way as, say, a 30-year-old might be. Do you think that that's a valid position, or do you think that it relies much more on individuals?
I'll pick up on that if I may, Kim, and I think this ties in a lot with what Kevin has just said. I think it's about what problem does it solve, what does it give the organization. Boards, in my experience, want to make money for their investors. They want to be profitable. And if that's by offering a manual service that can deliver, fantastic. If that's by using technology, they don't need to know the in-depth. They don't need to know how to code something themselves. They bring in, part of being a board member is bringing in the right people, bringing in the right advisors, bringing in the right skill sets. So my experience is if you create a strong business case, which I know Martin would agree with as well, if you create a good business case, you're able to get people on side irrespective of the technology or the tools that are needed.
Okay, thank you. Martin?
There's a difference. So I'm working with some companies where there's mainly Gen Z, and patience is completely different. And you ask them questions like, what's a phone? And where like some generations would go like this, they go like this, because they've never actually held the phone close to their ear. And they are used to like push, and if I don't like it, I swipe and I get to the next thing. So them reading on a call center, them having a website that is clunky is not the type of service. They are not used to these brands anymore, where we all grew up with like this famous brand everybody saw on the television when there were a limited number of channels. They have no brand loyalty. So there is a big difference between the current generations and the generations that are going to soon have more money to spend. So if our services are not focusing on their risks, because that's also different, their risk might be that somebody steals their crypto, not that somebody breaks into their house, because they might not own a house. So unless you solve product issues for your customers, and if you don't understand their new risks, then you don't solve them. So it has nothing to do with technology. It's just basic. Are you solving the right problem for the right customer?
And service there, Martin. So insurance is about trust and service, isn't it? And support. So when you're talking about crypto risk, when we're talking about some of the new reputational risks, customers they don't just want to be indemnified. They don't just want their money back. They want help. They want support. They want their problem solved. They want somebody to steer them through this situation that they have found themselves in. And that's something that traditional insurers, the knowledge and experience they have an enormous amount of experience collateral to be able to draw on, and they should harness that to be able to provide new products, new services, new skills. We're seeing this in the B2B market, in the specialty insurance world. We are seeing many of insurance organizations work with Internet of Things providers. They're bringing in sensor technology to vessels and cargo and hospitality. They are working with partners to be able to incorporate technology that can give new data, new insights, that can provide their customers with better experiences.
Okay, that's a convenient point actually to ask Kevin the next question, to be honest, because I think in terms of solving these issues for the insurance industry, we have to start with whether it's a design or a technical issue. So what practical steps can we take there, Kevin, in order to train people, get them looking out for things, and then embracing those digital solutions?
Yeah, I think if I pick up on the previous point, well, I think it's all about what we're doing as an industry. We're providing a service. So to go back to Martin's point, I think it's all about how do we design a service around the people that are using them. So a board member, generally an older person, we need to understand how they're going to use our service and cater for them. From a younger Gen Z point of view, we need to bring them into the process, and we need to bring them in as decision makers, I think, in the new products we're building and making along the way, because they're the future, they're going to be using it, and that's how we're going to create advance in innovation and also create a competitive advantage. From your point of view, Kim, how can we monitor and change, and are they design or are they technical problems? Generally, you're looking at two kind of mindsets. From a technical coding point of view, or somebody building a product, they will always see a barrier as a code problem or a technical problem. And we had this in our agency. We had it recently, actually, where a developer will sit there for a few hours and try and solve a problem from a technical point of view. But actually, when a designer gets involved, they look at it from a design point of view. And actually, it may just be something as simple as the button's in the wrong place or the button's the wrong color. So we'll do experiments and we'll launch a number of iterations of that and get it tested anonymously. And then we'll take the feedback and decide which is the best route based upon the audience that are using it. Now, we can go out to a number of groups. So we could define board member kind of people to test stuff, see what they do, right down through generations, right down to sort of, people in their teens potentially. So then we can then cater for the people at each level and understand where we need to invest our time and money and effort to create better stuff, better products.
Okay, thank you. Martin, do you have a view on that?
So I think about 8 years ago, Cisco did an experiment. They invited a group of 5 interns to come and design a product. And basically they said, like, hey, we have years of networking experience. And these 5 students came in and simplified designing a product to the point that, like, with dragging and dropping, anybody could configure systems where, like, the Cisco teams had spent years on training how people could configure such complex things. And they simplified it to the point that anybody could do it. And this approach whereby you invite people that aren't necessarily familiar with your business and you give them a challenge can often lead to, like, very unexpected things. So why would you have the board designing a new product for Gen Z? They are as far removed as possible. Why don't you invite some Gen Z team together with 1 or 2 employees and put them in a separate, what I call future venture, and see if they can come up with some new thing. What we did with our Harry Potter problems is we didn't guarantee we could solve them. We would take them through 3 stages. Like in an alpha phase, can I show you that there's something new that you might be interested? So that could be, here's the horse with fireworks, or this is a Tesla. What customers can do is they can understand that, like, this might be interesting. I want to know more. So showing them a completely new product or a completely new experience, they'll be able to tell you, yeah, it looks like a faster horse, or it's something I'm interested in. And then from there, you can then take it to the beta phase, where very quickly you make a prototype. It doesn't have to work. Like, it can be a soapbox with an electric engine. You just need to put somebody on it and outrace that horse. So don't think about building a whole solution. Build in 4 weeks something that is good enough to prove it can be solved, but that also gives you that information that, okay, it doesn't drink water, it doesn't eat grass, and it needs a flat surface. So now we have things that we didn't know about the problem that we had to solve. So we see that, like, we need to now, if we really want to do a pilot with some customers, that we need to find solutions for that. So you then give that team 3-4 months to come up with a pilot. And we did that several times, and we failed a lot of things at the alpha phase, the beta phase, some even at the pilot phase, because it was the cheapest way to do. If you fail in the beginning, you don't put a big team for years building the wrong product. So it's a very simple process to get to new ways of working, and people like the Designlab can definitely help guide people through such processes.
Okay, thank you. Caroline.
Sorry, well, while I remember. I saw something yesterday, the other day, that probably illustrates Martin's point very, very clearly. It was 2 images. One was an image of a cat tree, or call it a cat tree. It's one of these fantastic things they build with lots of platforms on for cats to climb on, hit balls, hit bells, and stuff like that. And it said envisioned requirement or something like that above it. And then there's a picture of a box with a cat in. And above that, it said users needs. So I think we all need to kind of understand that kind of situation where we're traditionally technology people have been, or technology agencies have been kind of designing these massive systems that actually 80% of them aren't really used. All you really need is to do the simple stuff like sitting in the box if you're a cat, because that's all you need for your home, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of us have bought Christmas presents for our children, haven't we? And they've had more fun out of the box than the thing we painstakingly put together on Christmas Eve.
Absolutely, and I'd agree with that. I mean, there are points at which we are guilty, strong word, of over-engineering a solution. And I know I've worked on computer projects where we've tried to put so much into it. And that's when you go off piste, as Martin quite rightly says, because you forget actually what the requirement was that you were trying to solve in the first place. I don't know if you've had any experience of that, Caroline.
Over the years, of course, I did a recent keynote where I was talking about the transition from waterfall through to agile, through to DevOps, and it brought back a fair few nightmares for me, where we'd spend 2 years gathering user requirements, and perhaps by the time we delivered on the project, the whole goalpost had completely changed. But now the process of really having that voice of the customer, whoever that customer may be, really be an intrinsic part of what you are delivering, means that if you follow that motto and you make sure that you're not looking, you need to understand and empathize with that customer exactly what they want, what it's going to deliver for them, not go into it with a solution in mind. I think Kevin talked earlier about having a desire to use a particular fashionable technological example, or going in with what a sort of glory project, vanity project that we want to deliver. If the box for the cat is going to make the cat happy and make you revenue, then that's what you should be creating, not going off to occupy yourself with something that you specifically want to do. So from my perspective, understand always what the customer needs, and looking at Martin said, not just now, but with some longevity. Make sure that you're not developing something for a need that's going to be removed in the next month or year. Make sure what you're creating can scale and is solving a need that will be potentially ongoing.
Yeah, and spending too much upfront can actually be counter innovative. So I worked for companies where like the owner had a lot of money and was like not market testing their solutions and thinking the next feature will solve it, and the next and the next, but that never works. Also, if you have a team and you give them the same amount of money that they needed to do a project last year, and now you tell them like you have to do it completely different, chances that they don't do it different are very high. If you say you normally need $1 million to do this project, I'm going to give you 250,000, and you'll have to think about like new ways of doing things because you don't have the money anymore to do it the traditional way. Probably they will go and say, can't go and build all these things. I need to use some cheap SaaS service to actually try to do the same now because I can't do it the traditional way anymore. And that's when real innovation happens. If you can't do it the old way, and you can force that as a leader by not giving enough money to do it the traditional way. And that's where often you get the best innovations.
I think that's a very valid point, actually. When you don't have the budget to deliver as you might have done before, I think the struggle to actually, and the challenge and solving that problem as a kind of a thinker is a really rewarding thing. Say, look, you came to us with a problem, you haven't got what you had initially, but guess what? We've really assessed it. We've delivered what the main things are, and we've delivered, and we've really, really thought about it. So I think that actually, it's like the startups. When startups are overfunded, they're generally, probably a generalization there, they're not going to be as successful as the people that are working really, really hard and thinking really hard to solve the actual problems themselves.
Correct.
I would just like to say, actually, to the participants on the call, I did see one comment actually, or question, and it's from Austin, and he says, we seem to be discussing the challenges around developing IT solutions. Do we not need to discuss what solutions need developing? What are the specific challenges in the industry? Do you not think the greatest challenge is the interconnectivity between insurers and the supply chain? So, Caroline.
Well, I think that insurers are very used to working with partners. I think that it is a mindset that insurers are part of an ecosystem. And I think when we're looking at the way in which we can, sorry, just remove that poll from my screen. When we're looking at the way that we can interact with those partners, we need to look at digitizing data. That's a priority for me, to be able to make sure that we all have access at all levels across that supply chain to the same levels of data, intricate data about our clients, so that we can see the bigger picture. I believe looking at the supply chain and how they work and they thrive is always very much on the insurer's radar. I'm sure Martin's got a view, perhaps.
Yeah, so let's go to that challenge with like insurers and supply chain, and how would an innovator look at it? So an innovator would normally go and say, like, how can I disrupt this industry? Because I don't like the current rules. If I'm going to compete with the current leaders on their terrain, then I'm going to lose. So I'd rather change the rules to a way that I can win and now get everybody to play along with my new rules, because then I'm in the center. That's a very basic disruption strategy. And how would you do that? Well, if you look at like supply chains and so on, can you Uberize them? Instead of like you partnering with you hiring this or that, can you make it that like there's a perfectly decentralized solution whereby I don't hire potentially, but I actually offer better service? So think about it. If I need to repair a building, I could either have like specific contracts with 3 suppliers, or if there's a plumber close by, they can go in the app and say, oh, I finished an hour earlier, I can bid for this work as well. So you could make the whole supply chain more dynamic. The other thing, if you look at like what Tesla's doing, is like, can I design away the things that are a headache for others? Like if it's a headache that like there's a claim for this or this, can I avoid those claims? Can I make the car that like this type of solution could be solved in a different way? And then the other way around as well is like, perhaps as an insurer, I actually now need to be part of a supply chain. I need to be in that Tesla car and be a button to do the insurance. I need to be perhaps on an Amazon Ring that can tell me if there's a burglar, if there's a fire, or if there's a water leakage.
Absolutely.
So rethinking that end-to-end story is really important, because if somebody else does it for you, they're not going to put you at the center of the universe. They're going to put you at the outskirts, feeding you the crumbs that fell from the table. So it's better that you think first and go for it first, because with IT, you can now build platforms that the whole industry can use. So if you think about like, look, claim handling with like Uberization, can I make one platform and offer it to my competitors? All of a sudden, I'm in the middle of this new world. So redesigning the end-to-end thing with yourself in a disruptive position can be very rewarding, and has been rewarding in lots of industries.
Okay, thank you all. I've noticed it's now 10:43, so it may well be time to bring the proceedings to a close. One of the things that I did want to highlight actually were the results of the poll that was taken at the start of the session in terms of what has been your experience of digital projects to date. 31% actually said good. Ambivalent was 54%. So if we do nothing else actually in the coming years, I'd like to see us move from ambivalent to good if we could. All that remains is to say to the participants, I know that there is one question in the chat and we will get back to you after this event. Thank you all very much for attending. I hope you've enjoyed it actually as much as I have. I would very much like to thank, of course, the panelists, Caroline, Kevin and Martin, for a very incisive and illuminating discussion. So thank you all. Pleasure to have chaired this webinar and hope to see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.